Hola, soy Lexi, and this is what you should know. I'm sorry, I don't know what's with me today. I'm feeling just a little bit hyperactive, can't tell you why. Just woke up this way. So I guess to start things off, I would like to actually shout out to a listener that reached out to me recently. Hi, John! Thank you so much for reaching out to me in regards to an episode that I did with some corrections. You were so nice about it, and I really do deeply appreciate that. I would like to apologize to those who live in Triabana. I brutally mispronounced that in the Triabana tragedy episode that I did, which I believe was episode 2. I will be doing a follow-up to that, probably as a short bonus episode, as John was able to point me in the direction of some more verifiable information, because let's be honest, 1800 newspapers isn't going to include everything. So I will be circling back around to that later. I just want to make sure I research that new information a little more thoroughly this time. So yeah, thanks, John. Now, are you ready for something spooky ooky? Something a little outside of the usual topic of murder? I felt after the last 3 episodes that maybe I should just perhaps lighten the mood just a skosh. How do you ask? Well, I'm glad you asked, because this is what you should know about Australian cryptids. For those who don't necessarily know what a cryptid is, because let's be honest, it's not everybody's first thought in the morning of, I wonder what a cryptid is. No, a cryptid is a somewhat mythical creature. Think of it like the Yeti or Bigfoot. A creature that we can't quite prove exists, but let's be honest, we're pretty sure we've seen it once or twice. The Yaramayyahu is a legendary creature found in Australian Aboriginal mythology. For our cryptozoologists, this is a subspecies of vampire and is said to resemble a little red, frog-like man, standing at about 4 feet tall with a big head, large mouth, with no teeth and suckers on the ends of its hands and feet. Which is a really creepy image to think about. I almost get the feeling it would look sweaty. The reason this creature makes it into the subspecies of vampire is due to how it feeds. The Yaramayyahu's method of attack is clever and typically captures unlucky humans. It drops down from trees, usually fig trees, onto an unwitting victim, then grabs the human's arm and uses its suckers on its fingers to suck blood from the victim, being careful not to completely drain them, before unhinging their jaw and swallowing them whole. Like a goddamn snake. The creature then rises and dances around until its prey is settled inside their stomach. They then go to a river or a pool of water and drink copious amounts of water before falling asleep. Because, you need to hydrate or you will dehydrate. Because, it's also, as I say, stay safe and stay hydrated, keep away from fig trees. When it wakes up, the creature vomits the remains of its recent meal. They will check several times to see if the prey is not feigning death, by poking them with a stick and tickling them. If there is no response, they go to sleep. The victim can then use this opportunity to run away. So, if you find yourself a victim of one of these creatures, it's safest to play dead at this point. That's assuming, you can sit still while it tries to tickle you with its creepy suction cup fingers. You'll hear it call out, "Where have you gone, my victim?" Due to its short legs and awkward stride, you will easily be able to outrun this creature. Should the Yaramayyahu fail to check the victim, then the spirit of the wild fig tree would kill them by entering into its head through its ear, becoming a cold fungus that grows on trees and sheds a dull glow at night. If you are swallowed multiple times by the Yaramayyahu, you will become one yourself. The second time you are swallowed and regurgitated, you become shorter and completely hairless. By the third time, you are shorter still, and thick hair grows over your body. Eventually, you become a Yaramayyahu yourself, cursed to do the same. Where the Yaramayyahu differs from its nocturnal counterpart, this creature is only active and hunts during the day, and plays dead until sunrise, as a ploy to avoid attack. Like many cryptids, these creatures came as a story, and these stories are traditionally known as Dreamtime stories amongst the Aboriginal people. These were used as a cautionary tale to prevent children from misbehaving. Speaking of creatures jumping down from trees to attack unwitting victims, we are next discussing the famed drop bear. Drop bears are a vicious carnivorous counterpart to the adorable but typically chlamydia-infected koala. It is described as having coarse orange fur with some darker molted patterning and is around the size of a leopard or a large dog. They are heavily built and have powerful forearms for climbing and holding onto prey, and are thought to live in the Great Dividing Range in southeastern Australia, with some reports from Mount Lofty Ranges and Kangaroo Island. As the name suggests, drop bears attack from above. They make quick work of their prey by diving from trees and attacking at the neck for a quick kill. They move silently despite their size, and will not always precede an ambush with their shrill, bone-chilling yowl. Their powerful jaws and sharp teeth can crush through bone, making it difficult to survive a fight against a drop bear. These creatures are aggressive and territorial. They target slow-moving mammals who encroach on their space, making a majority of their human prey, bushwalking tourists, blissfully unaware that they have entered into a drop bear zone. Warning signs are typically posted in the areas that have a higher rate of bear-related incidents. But experts have not yet found a safe way to corral wild, bloodthirsty drop bears. Extreme caution is advised, regardless of signage. I even recall my late uncle warning me of the dangers before taking me on a camping trip, and I spent the entire trip looking up into the trees and jumping at the sound of anything hitting the top of the tent. But as you can tell, I safely made it home. There are several methods to avoid being attacked by drop bears. They consist of putting forks into your hair, spreading toothpaste or Vegemite behind your ears or on your armpits, urinating on yourself, and only speaking in an Australian accent in English. Now listen in close. I am about to break one of the few Australian rules and tell you what I'm sure you are already able to guess. Please don't come for me, guys. But with a method like that to ward off vicious creatures, it is obvious that drop bears are an ongoing hoax. There is nothing funnier than forewarning a tourist the dangers of a drop bear and watching them as they look up at the trees. You will even have those that will tell you tales of how they survived them and even show off scars that are completely unrelated. That being said, still keep an eye on the trees if you visit Australia, especially during spring, when there is an all but too real danger known as the magpie. Those savage bastards will swoop you. From treetops to the ocean, we are now looking at the Hook Island sea monster. A little geography lesson for all. Hook Island is one of the Whitsunday Islands off the coast of an Australian state of Queensland. The island is almost uninhabited, rugged and almost completely contained within a section of the Whitsunday Islands National Park. The island has two prominent geographical features on the southern side of Hook Island: the Narra and Makona inlets, two fjord-like recesses that are used as anchorages for the Whitsunday tourist fleet. The island's northern coast is noticed for its colourful underwater coral growths, which attract a large number of snorkeling tourists. But under those beautiful crystal-like waves lies the Hook Island sea monster, also known as the tadpole monster. It was in December of 1964 when Robert Laserick was in Hook Bay and took the famous photos that virally circulated around the world. It is quite disconcerting to look at this picture, as it wasn't easy to edit photography back in the 60s. During this time, it would have been done by double exposure. Not saying it wasn't possible, but it would have been quite a lengthy process. With the photo now being everywhere, it starts to become quite ridiculous, as in one picture, the creature appears to be more of a photoshopped sperm rather than a giant tadpole. Robert and his family purchased a motorboat and decided to spend 3 months on Hook Island. They were crossing Stonehaven Bay on December 12, 1964, when Robert's wife allegedly spotted a large object in the lagoon floor. It proved to be a giant tadpole-like creature, estimated to be about 30 feet long. As they moved closer, they took several photos. Eventually, Robert gained enough courage to get into the water and approach it in order to film this creature. It was then he realized it was larger than he first thought, with its estimated length increasing to about 75 to 80 feet. Initially, he believed it to be dead as it didn't move, but when he started filming it, it opened its mouth and made movements towards him. Understandably, Robert was startled by this and returned to his boat. By the time he scrambled back on, the creature swam away. A large pale patch on the right side of the creature's tail had been considered to be a wound, and was suggested that this had caused the animal to take rest and refuge in the shallow bay. Mostly black in colour, the animal had brown transverse stripes and its skin was smooth in texture and possessed no fins nor spines of any kind, and Robert didn't see any teeth inside the white mouth. There is no real information regarding what this creature is, not even in the traditional Dreamtime stories, so it's widely to believe to be a hoax. Initial considerations for this include a grouping of smaller fish, or, if it was an injured fish, that it was an oarfish coming up to the surface to either heal or die. The final piece of evidence demonstrating that this whole episode was a hoax comes from the fact that in 1959, Robert Laserick had tried to get a group together on an expedition that would prove financially fruitful, and that he had another thing in reserve which will bring in a lot of money, something to do with a sea serpent. So I don't think anyone really has to worry about a giant black sperm while swimming. That being said, it's always best to be cautious in Australian waters. The wildlife is quite deadly. Speaking of life forms living in bodies of water, you can't talk about Australian cryptids without speaking about the Bunyip. The legendary monster is said to inhabit the reedy swamps and lagoons of the interior part of Australia. So, you are quite safe from them while enjoying the sun at the beach. The amphibious animal was variously described as having a round head, an elongated neck, and a solid body, resembling an ox, hippopotamus, or manatee. Some witnesses have stated it having a human figure. The bunyip makes terrifying sounds like booming or roaring, and has a diet of human flesh, especially women and children. During the early settlement of Australia by Europeans, a common idea was that the bunyip was an unknown animal to be discovered. Unfamiliar sights and sounds of the island continent's peculiar fauna, early Europeans believed that the bunyip described to them was one more strange Australian animal. They sometimes attributed unfamiliar animal calls and cries to it. When you consider what animals we have, can you really blame them? I mean, really. Take into consideration the platypus. Now, a large number of bunyip sightings occurred during the 1840s and 1850s, particularly in the southeastern colonies of Victoria, New South Wales and South Australia as European settlers extended their reach. One of the earliest accounts relating to a large unknown freshwater animal was in 1818, when Hamilton Hume and James Meehan found some large bones at Lake Bathurst in New South Wales. They did not know what the creature was, but described the remains indicating the creature was very much like a hippopotamus or a manatee. The Philosophical Society of Australasia later offered to reimburse Hume for any costs incurred recovering the specimen of the unknown animal, but for various reasons, Hume did not return to the lake. Ancient Diprotodon skeletons have sometimes been compared to the hippopotamus. They are a land animal but sometimes have been found in a lake or watercourse. Another early written account is attributed to escaped convict William Buckley in his 1852 biography of 30 years living with the Ritherong people. His 1852 account records, "In Lake Mudawari, as well as in most of the others, inland is a very extraordinary amphibious animal, which the natives call bunyip." His account suggests he saw such a creature on several occasions and adds, "I could never see any part except the back, which appeared to be covered with feathers of a dusky grey colour. It seemed to be about the size of a full-grown calf. I could never learn from any of the natives that they had seen either the head or the tail." William also claimed the creature was common in the Balwyn River and cites an example he heard from an Aboriginal woman being killed by one. He emphasised that the bunyip was believed to have supernatural powers. An article titled The Bunyip reported on the drawings made by a man named Edwin as he travelled on the Murray and Goulburn rivers. Amongst the latter drawings, we noticed a likeness of the bunyip, or rather, a view of the neck and shoulders of the animal. Edwin informs us that the bunyip is a large freshwater seal, having 2 small fins attached to the shoulders, a long swan-like neck, a head like a dog, and a curious bag hanging under the jaw, resembling the pouch of a pelican. The animal is covered with hair, like the platypus, and the colour is a glossy black. Edwin saw no less than 6 of these curious animals at different times. His boat was within 30 feet of one near Maguire's Punt on the Goulburn, and he fired at the bunyip but did not succeed in capturing him. The smallest appeared to be about 5 feet in length, and the largest exceeded 15 feet. The head of the largest was the size of a bullock's head, and 3 feet out of water. After taking this sketch of the animal, Edwin showed it to several blacks of the Goulburn tribe who declared that the picture was Bunyip's brother, meaning a duplicate or a likeness to the bunyip. The animals moved against the current at a rate of about 7 miles an hour, and Edwin states that he could have approached close to the specimens he observed, had he not been deterred by the stories of the natives concerning the power and fury of the bunyip, and by the fact that his gun had only a single barrel, and his boat was of very frail description. I would like to point out that was all from the newspaper article, and my god, it's hard to read because the way they write things is just painful, especially how they referred to the indigenous tribes as the blacks. That hurt my soul. The description varied across newspaper accounts. The great bunyip question seems likely to have been brought to a close as Edwin, an artist and a gentleman, has come up the Murray in a small boat, states that he saw one and was enabled to take a drawing of this vexed question, but could not succeed in catching him. We have seen the sketch, and it puts us in mind of a hybrid between a water mole and a great sea serpent. Edwin, an artist, and his mother are on an expedition down the Murray for the purpose of making some faithful sketches of the views of this fine stream, as well as the creatures frequenting it. I have seen of their productions, and as they portray localities with which I am well acquainted, I can pronounce the drawings with faithful representations. Mother and son go down the stream in a canoe, and the son devotes himself to choose views on the river's side. One of the drawings represents a singular creature which the artist is unable to classify. It has the appearance in miniature of the famous sea serpent, as the animal is described by navigators. Edwin was about 25 yards distant from it at first sight as it lay placidly on the water. On being observed, the stranger set off, working his paddles briskly and rapidly disappearing. Captain Cadell has tried to solve the mystery, but is not yet satisfied as to what the animal really is. Edwin states that there were about 2 feet of it above water when he first saw it, and estimated its length from about 5 to 6 feet. The worthy captain says that unless the creature is the musk drake, so called for giving off a very strong odour of musk, he cannot account for the novelty. It is believed the origin of the belief probably lies in the rare appearance of fugitive seals far upstream. The monster's alleged cry may be that of a bittern marsh bird. If you add into that the cautionary Dreamtime stories to prevent children from playing carelessly near bodies of water, it is easy to understand where this all comes from. But if you want to see a rendition of the bunyip, you can go to Murray Bridge in South Australia and see the famous bunyip at the Sturt Reserve. And if you are wondering, it is a family-friendly experience. I think we have time for maybe just one more cryptid, the fabled Yowie. The Yowie is usually described as a hairy and ape-like creature standing upright between 6'11" and 12 foot. Its feet are described as much larger than a human's, but alleged tracks are inconsistent with shape and toe number, and the description of the Yowie foot and footprints are provided by witnesses are even more varied than those of Bigfoot. The Yowie's nose is described as wide and flat. Much like with Bigfoot, some report the Yowie as timid or shy, while others describe it as sometimes violent and aggressive. In a column from the Sydney Morning Herald in 1987, columnist Margaret Jones wrote that the first Australian Yowie sighting was said to have taken place as early as in 1795. Main sightings have been around New South Wales, Northern Territory, and Queensland. In 1977, former Queensland Senator Bill O'Chee reported to the Gold Coast Bulletin that he had seen a Yowie while on a school trip in Springbrook. He compared the creature that he saw to Chewbacca from Star Wars and told reporters that the creature he saw had been over 3 meters tall. In 1994, Yowie hunter Tim the Yowie Man claimed to have seen one in the Brindabella Ranges. In 1996, a couple from Newcastle claimed to have seen a Yowie between Braidwood and the coast. They said it was a shaggy creature, walking upright, standing at the height of at least 2.1 meters tall, with disproportionately long arms and no neck. In the late 90s, there were several reports of Yowie sightings in the area of the Acacia Hills. One sighting was by a mango farmer named Katrina Tucker, who reported in 1997 having been meters away from a hairy humanoid creature on her property. Photographs of the footprint were collected at the time. In August of 2000, a Canberra bushwalker described seeing an unknown bipedal beast in the Brindabella Mountains. The bushwalker, Steve Piper, caught the incident on videotape. It is known as the Piper film and is readily available on YouTube if you're curious. I watched it, and to be honest, it's exactly what you would expect for a Bigfoot video. In May of 2012, an American television crew claimed it had recorded audio of a Yowie in a remote region on the New South Wales-Queensland border. During 2010 in Canberra, a man said he saw an animal described as a juvenile, covered in hair with long arms that almost touched the ground in his garage. A friend of the man told him that that could be a Yowie. And in March of 2014, 2 Yowie searchers claimed to have filmed the Yowie in South Queensland using an infrared tree camera, collected fur samples, and found large footprints. Later that same year, a Gympie man told the media he had encountered Yowies on several occasions, including conversing with and teaching some English to a very large male Yowie in the bush of northeast Gympie. And several people in Port Douglas claim to have seen Yowies near Mowbray and at the Rocky Point Range. While it is a stretch to believe that people have witnessed the Yowie, I mostly struggle to believe that a Gympie man taught one how to speak English. It is hard enough to teach a language to another human, but to a mythical creature feels like a bit of a stretch. That being said, I do believe that he believes that he has taught a Yowie to speak English. I also would like to believe, but I'm skeptical at the best of times. There is a large number of people who strongly believe that the Yowie exists and work tirelessly to hunt the creature to prove its existence. We have 2 famed for their efforts. Since the mid-70s, paranormal enthusiast Rex Gilroy, a self-employed cryptozoologist, has attempted to popularize the Yowie. Rex claims to have collected over 3,000 reports of them and proposed that they comprise a relict population of extinct ape or Homo species. He believes that the Yowie is related to the North American Bigfoot. Along with his partner Heather Gilroy, they've spent 50 years assessing his Yowie collection. And since witnessing the Yowie in 1994, Tim the Yowie Man has investigated sightings and other paranormal phenomena. He also writes a regular comment in an Australian newspaper, the Canberra Times and the Sydney Morning Herald. Fun fact for Tim the Yowie Man: in 2004, he won a giant legal battle against Cadbury Schweppes, as the giant company had released Yowie chocolates, a Kinder Surprise style chocolate. They took him to court to prevent him from trademarking his Tim the Yowie Man name. Personal opinion, you really cannot trademark a name, not necessarily. Especially not something like the name Yowie, because that is a Dreamtime story. But maybe they just need another hobby outside of making some of my favourite chocolate. But on that flavourful note, that is all I have for you until next week. However, I have a question for you, my lovelies. Have you ever encountered any cryptids or creatures that you could just not explain? Let me know either by shooting me an email to whatyoushouldknowaustralia@gmail.com. If you feel so inclined, you can comment on the pictures of these creatures that I will be posting on my Instagram @whatyoushouldknowaustralia. Or if you feel so inclined, you're more than welcome to follow me on Facebook, What You Should Know Australia, and let me know on there, either by message or commenting or writing on a wall. Or heck, if you just so happen to be listening to this on YouTube, feel free to drop down in the comment section your paranormal cryptid experiences. But until next Monday, stay safe and stay hydrated. Bye!